Oh, fucking give me attention, you bastard. Oh my god, I think we're streaming. I can never tell. It's Saturday morning. Welcome. This is the Art of Rock. Check it out. I'm wearing my scum shirt
Yeah.
from yeah, I got one from Alex from Vulture Culture. Okay, we're gonna get to that. Great session the other night on the fucking
It
quiet.
was.
God, that was a good session. Frank is already on my case. Welcome. This is the Art of Rock. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the Tongva people as being the traditional landowners of Los Angeles. If you're in an area, maybe you should find out who your traditional landowners are, because we're starting to build a conversation in this great country about land reconciliation. So just learn who your peoples are, learn what languages they speak, learn stuff. Even go to a powwow. Want to get your mind blown? Go to a powwow. They're incredible. Every Saturday we are here. Angelspit's Twitch, also on the YouTube. And it's bloody awesome. Please join us. Diana, welcome. Adam, welcome. This is made possible with Angelspit's Patreon. For $3 a month, you can get stuff, or it's free, or pay more. There it is. And also, I want to send out some love to Kerry, where she is right now. She's facing some more tornadoes today. So power and everything is off there, and I really hope those guys are okay. The new Ice Planet 9000 album is called The Nebula Suite. It's there on Bandcamp. The new Angelspit album kickstarts maybe in a week, but it's all systems go. The Industrial Incisions playlist is bloody awesome. Go get some. And if you're a Patreon member, will you please send me your fucking tracks so I can put them there and then pimp it. So it's a whole bunch of old stuff and a whole bunch of new stuff. Vulture Culture, Wednesday nights. I swear to God, you've got to jump on. They're so good. So that's where I got my show, and this is Alex's shirt from Vulture Culture. You can also subscribe to his YouTube, and you can also buy his merch. Really good conversation the other night. I find them inspiring because it's like, although I don't own that synth, although I don't have any room for that synth, there's things that synth can do that I'm going to try and do on my other gear. It's bloody great. Something that else is bloody great is MTV TV, and that's where we're going to be rating to after this. Boom. I'm telling you, you're going to find your new favorite band on MTV TV, and if you've got some music, if you've got a video clip, send it to them, and they will play it, and you will get, people are going to find out about you. MTV TV have also got a Patreon. Please follow Liza. Good to see you. Have also got a Patreon. Jump on. Nothing but awesome shit. Support them. We got to keep them going. Someone else we've got to keep going is Razi. Thanks for being a co-host, man. You're bloody awesome.
Hey, I love to be here, and thank you.
There's Razi's YouTube, Patreon, and Bandcamp. Go get it. Go get it in your face. What are we talking about? We were talking about Sweetwater guys before we got on. It's really funny how they do call, hey man, just checking in. And it's nice to hear from the Sweetwater boys. Mine's Carson. I met Carson 10 years ago. Carson's actually a friend. And Carson called me. He got an Emax too. Jen, welcome. And that was bloody great when he got his Emax too. So Jen actually threw out a question too recently about soundtracks that inspire you. And that's such a wonderful thing. And thanks again for Frank's octopus, Jen, that he is ripping to shreds. So I want to throw it open. What soundtracks have you got? And specifically, a soundtrack that's inspired you to make music. So I want to not only just hear about the soundtrack, but I want to hear, how has it inspired you to create your music? Ivan, tell me about your soundtracks.
Okay. I mean, obviously, there's Blade Runner because, how could one not listen to that, like just the sound in that movie and just like not recognize it as just freaking masterful? It's great. And, the CS80 is made to shine in that movie. In ways that other CS80 owners had not achieved. And so, that's great. And then Have you ever seen Dead Man? Johnny Depp, back in the early 2000 or early 90s, or mid 90s. The guitar work on that soundtrack is haunting and beautiful, and like an inspiration all of its own to like kind of accomplish the feeling and sound of that movie, is surprisingly hard. But it's it's partially about the destination and it's extremely about the journey, which makes chasing that like well worth it. And then like I will always like, because my movie choices get all film school really fast. Um, Romeo is Bleeding with Gary Oldman back in '92. Um, the soundtrack there is actually really good for a early '90s soundtrack. It does a great job of capturing. Again, it's about capturing like how do these scenes feel, and what is the music director and the director trying to say about what's going on in this scene. And it is a very good movie at doing that. And then when push comes to shove, despite the like all of the like late 50s and 60s ness of his movies, Kurosawa really understood how to use soundtrack to sell a scene. And like even like the weirdest, like most Japanese sounding parts of those movies, the soundtrack is really doing a great job. And you listen to it and you want to convey feeling with music, and like his stuff does teach you how to do it. It will take you to school and introduce you to ideas and ways of speaking to the listener that you're a little you know unexpected here in the West. But again, I will get all film school on film soundtracks because I kind of spent quality time in that world and picked up a few nuggets of uh, thinking about it.
Excellent. Thank you. Brett, tell me about the soundtracks that have inspired you and how they've inspired you.
So the first one that comes to mind is the Terminator theme. Um, Honestly, what I like about it is you have those very war drums, dum 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 dum, you know. But then they also do a thing with the synths there that is also very pretty, and I like the dissonance between the two. Um, it is coupled with a lot of horror themes as well. Like I remember, like 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, things like that. Going back to '80s horror movies and whatnot. Most recently, I would probably have to give some props to American Horror Story. That intro they got, that theme that they're doing in the end, it's so dissonant, I had trouble calling it music. But the fact that someone put that much creativity into it, and actually I just learned it was one of the guys, a former member of Nails, helped with that one, and it's always been themes like that are really bold, really striking, but also typically really pretty if you get past their creepiness.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Resi, how about you?
Um, there's one that's not cheating and then the one that may be cheating. So the one that's easily connected with what I'm sort of doing with synthesizers is the Risky Business soundtrack, Tangerine Dreams work. Particularly Love on a Rail Train piece, like was just the mood, and I understood the instrumentation, and like I really got it, and it really clicked, and it made me You know what? I don't know how I take it into the actual practice, but it certainly was a pivotal thing for tone and scene setting and stuff. And the one that is cheating, and the reason I say cheating is that the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack was a record before it was a soundtrack to anything, and it's also, like opera, so it's not actually soundtrack. But as a little kid, that one gave me some of these like music for grown-ups kind of sound exposure that was like some of the little like synth figures were like so scary and otherworldly and evocative of mood and specific moment in the recording, that is something that I really took forward my whole life, certainly. To this day, I'll go back and listen to all the mistakes and crappy clams that people blow in those recordings and where the distortion happens, and just remember and be grounded in that this still is a great work despite technological limitations. Every single piece of the libretto works with every single piece of the mood and tone of the music. And that is something that I do try to remember a lot when thinking about like, whoa, what are these lyrics going to do? What's this song doing? How do we connect these things? And I sometimes still go back to that. And the fact that it was like kind of opera characters and different singers and stuff, there's a little bit of something that I like to think that I took away from that, where you hire the right singer for the song. And I think I've mentioned it before in imagining what character is singing one of the songs that I'm working on, like, who is this? What do they sound like? And maybe do something a little bit different, but end up sounding like yourself. So, yeah, that one was pivotal.
Thank you so much. Is it all right if I shoot my mouth off for a bit? Yeah, so opera. Um, think of it as the soundtrack to a musical. Marriage of Figaro, anything by Mozart and anything by Verdi. And the thing that gets me about opera is the massive, really Verdi and Wagner, but mainly Verdi. The huge, massive chords, these massively beautiful, complicated, thick walls of music. And I'm not just talking, there's lots of violins playing it. The violins are playing these huge, crazy chords, and they're moving between massive chunks of music. Big, intense stuff. And well, obviously that stuff's great to sample. And you sample little bits of it so that it's adding this massive flavor to what's going on, but also using that stuff to vocode. So if you're singing something and you're playing through the notes of a big sample, you end up with these incredibly huge colors. And also when you're, and this is mainly for me, it's mainly Ice Planet 9000 stuff. Angelspit, kind of not so much. Angelspit's really defined, and something I'm trying to do since our conversation last week about the soundtrack and all that stuff, I've really been giving a lot of thought to how I don't want to use chords. I want to move away from chords, like chords. It's more like all of these lines that they hit these moments of harmonic context that makes, with each strike there's emotion. And that's the thing about a soundtrack, is it's saying, oh, here's the emotion, here's something you can be feeling. And if it's done really well, and this is something Wagner used to do, and from that Wagner thing, all soundtracks got inspired by Wagner's concept, which was the orchestra is not only God, but it sees all and it knows what's coming. So it's going to be giving you hints as to what's about to happen. And although the character is saying something nice and happy, there is an underlying evil that's going on, that the music is doing that. And that's something really wonderful. Like, there was a movie in the 90s, I think, called Ravenous. And it's about the cannibals. It had Guy Pearce and some other one. Was it Mr. Bungle did the music for it or something? I can't remember. And it was just, and I saw a movie recently where Johnny Marr, I think that was There Will Be Blood or something. Johnny Marr did the from Radiohead did the soundtrack. I can't remember. Fucking insane. But the thing about Ravenous is that there's this banjo clicking away, and the thing's out of tune. And there's all of this other stuff going on, and it's like, it's creepy as fuck. It's so fucking creepy. It's brilliantly creepy. And the way that it does, like when I was in uni, one of the lecturers described it as Alice in Wonderland, where Alice is tripping along and she's the little melody. And it's this really simple little melody that is going on in front of Wonderland, in front of the chaos, the intrigue, and the deep, dark, dirty secrets of Wonderland. So the musicality behind that is supporting Alice's little melodies is adding a lot more depth and a lot more emotional. What the fuck, you know? That's why I love Verdi. And fun story. So LA Opera is currently doing Rigoletto. Rigoletto was written by the same guy who wrote Hunchback of Notre Dame. So Rigoletto and Quasimodo are from the same mind, where they're showing somebody who was a dwarf, deformed, as being compassionate, beautiful, caring, and extremely humane. Anyway, over this darkness, horrible darkness. Apocalypse Now. And actually there's a secret soundtrack to Apocalypse Now that never got done. That was very, very, very synthesized. I think I've got my story right here. It never got released because it took too long, or there was some fight or something. I can't remember. But it's fucking great. So if you like Blade Runner, Apocalypse Now, like, and I'm not talking about, oh, here's the Doors, here's the Stones. I'm talking about the synth work that's going on to create this massive amazingness. And it comes back to what we were saying last week about how you are creating in an album to create the soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist. So you might say Blade Runner, you might say from Star Wars, you might say all of these other things, Alien, Terminator. And it's really funny how that bunk, 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 bunk in Terminator is, and so much of Terminator, it was increased. The creepiness was heightened by the use of a shitty low quality sampler. And that sampler added this, probably by mistake, or not by intent, created this amazing cyber feeling of machines, because you're hearing this musicality that's going and it added this thing to it. And it really comes back to the idea of setting a period for the soundtrack, the album, the concept, whatever it is. And, you know, fine, it's fine to go off script, but setting a period and using the technology from that time, or that you choose, or free plugins or whatever, or your old samplers or whatever it is, to create this thing. And it's, yeah, so that's Carl's thoughts. Ivan, what are your thoughts?
I almost forgot to mention the like master of soundtrack making, John Carpenter. Because, you know, not only does he make the movies, he makes the soundtrack for them. And he really, really understands how to, you know, set a scene with audio and make the audio work with the scene. And, you know, like, you know, just listen to, you know, The Thing or They Live, and like you get dragged into those movies by the soundtrack itself, which is, you know, a pretty, you know, deep and masterful thing. Also, like, you know, let's not forget David Lynch and his guy. You know, apparently, you know, they would, you know, the two of them would, they, you know, synth was set up and they would, you know, work on that, and, you know, until David Lynch was happy. You know, so he was inadvertently taking part in the orchestration of the the scenes, and or more importantly, like the stories involved around uh, the Laura Palmer theme in uh, that show is just a classic example of the way Lynch approached creativity, and it worked, and this was not just Lynch; it was his audio guy as well. Like he knew what he was doing. He knew how to play these things and just make it work. And work it got made.
So how does that inspire you? What have you seen in a Lynch movie or something that you've taken, and give me an example, and put into your music?
Yeah, sadly, mostly for me, the thing that in like you know it has resulted in most marching orders for my music has been like the Invader Zim theme. Because it's got that nice marchiness, and it's at the right speed, and there's that whole background going on. I love it. Kind of inadvertently. I don't know how it got attached to my brain, but like, man, a lot of cartoon soundtracks have ended up inspiring further work.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, Rezi, what do you think?
There's there. Brett mentioned Close Encounters, and I was trying to think of places where the fourth wall diegetic barrier is broken, and that it's music inside the world that we're also part of hearing because it's part of the story. And that I think they set up an ARP 2600 and played the melody and talked to a spaceship, and it was pretty exciting. Another
2500,
synthesizer.
but go on.
Okay, thank you. I'd love to be corrected on that one. I knew that I was going out on a limb calling out which synth it was. Um, and it's funny. It's made me think of the Tri-Lam talent show at the end of Revenge of the Nerds. That freaking part where he's pretending to play a violin, maybe it's like, let's imagine it's a synth controller violin sound, was like, the downtrodden uncools got up on stage and had an amazing event and put on the best performance of the night, and they were the ones that actually had an original thing and really made the music and were actually performing it, and there was something about that moment in that movie. Can't imagine why that would resonate with me, but it was special. What did I do with it? I went and tried to write songs like that.
And that's what we want to hear. So nerd alert. So the guy in Close Encounters who's playing that massive fucking ARP 2500 was actually the sales guy for ARP. And the story goes that that ARP got ruined because it was ended up being covered in epoxy resin or something. Something happened, and that fucking so Spielberg owns an ARP 2500 somewhere that's covered in goop. And the sound is actually a Moog Rogue. I think it's not an ARP 2500. It's something else. Okay, so there's two things. Firstly, I remember seeing a thing about how was it the Terminator 1 soundtrack? How he couldn't sync up he had a Prophet 10 or something, and he couldn't sync it up to a sequencer or something like that. So the sequence is going bah, 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 completely out of time with something else. And I saved that. My brain only saves shit like that, like other stuff like remember to do the dishes or remember to get food or remember to eat. Nah, I'm not remembering that. I will remember that weird out of sync thing though. So I tried it recently on a track, on an Ice Planet track, and the song I think is 90 something BPM or 110, and the sequencer is going on behind it at 120. And it was really weird that I then slotted it back to 110 so everything's in sync, and it's like it just lost its magical edge. It was really, really interesting. You probably can't really do that with like with dance music just for reasons. Hey, maybe you can. Gee, I don't know. Maybe I should try that. But that was a fun thing. In Rigoletto, Verdi does this thing because all the shit goes down, like all the murders and the mayhem, and it all comes together in this massive fucking storm. And the entire orchestra is playing the storm. And it's quite a massive, terrifying, thunderous thing. And when it dissipates, it's insane. And it starts with these, with the wind. And the wind are male vocals. And they're going to da 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 da, but they and they're all kind of like gliding. They're not going da 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 da. They're going and they're hitting these chords as all of these vocals are intertwining. And I just went, I'm fucking doing that. And I was thinking, do I do that as a multi-track? Do I do it as a vocoder? I don't know. I haven't got to that yet, but it's like, it was such a wonderful thing that, when you're going from this chord to this chord. And another fun thing to do is when you're doing, if you want chords, use your vocals. And if they're not going, then they're singing lyrics or fucking something. I don't know. Do what Prince does. But you don't need to go, you go, and it's in that moment of when it goes up into that chord where you start, and it's not just everybody goes up. Some people might go down. Some people might stay roughly the same. Everyone's moving contrapuntally, all in these different directions. And when it slides like that, it creates the most beautiful emotion. I'm going to stop talking now as you go.
This is a little bit of a digression from that, but you're talking about parts and intricate sort of composition techniques, and maybe nobody's got an example of this. I can't think of one, but when your soundtrack, your score composition conflicts with the sound effects bed, conflicts with some of the dialogue, conflicts with some of the maybe music that's supposed to be present in the scene, there's a real, I think, mixing stage kind of expertise that goes into deciding which of these we can even put through traditionally a little mono speaker in the TV, but even through a very large and powerful sound system where you lose track of the cues that you're supposed to be taking from the music. And I remember experiencing that poorly done versions of that, early on television mostly, and especially if you're watching a TV version of a movie where it may be remixed by not the original people to get the stereo version of it or the mono version, and noticing that these competing sounds can confuse the point that you're trying to deliver to the listener, and noticing in my own work sometimes when these conflicts had happened and where events aren't handing off nicely to other ones, and that there's not just a conflict but a lack of clarity on which sound is intending to give you which message. I don't know. Did anybody notice any real successes or failures lately? Because it happens a lot in television, I think, where the deadlines are so much shorter. It's an interesting thing to think about. Listen for it, though. Like when you're sitting there watching a show and maybe it's boring and you're looking at your phone and you still want to get through it because you already watched the previous 3 episodes, start paying attention to where the remixing, re-recording people decided to combine which elements and how they chose which volumes to put them at. And it can be really informative for your own stuff. When we're in a genre that brings in sound effects a lot, and, different sections can have very different moods, it's a real informative thing about what they're doing for the masses, how this works with the visuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Brett, what do you think?
So I saw your question in regards to. So a little bit ago I mentioned Close Encounters in chat and whatnot, and it does go hand in hand with what we're talking about. So the question you posed back to me is how does it inspire me? So one of the things I really like about that theme and the way is really the way they used it throughout the movie. So if I think back on it, what I end up being left with is how that tune grew throughout the entire thing. Just like, and it became, the movie is about, uncovering, what's going on from the perspective of that dude with the experience and whatnot. And when he gets up on top of the mountain or the mesa or whatever, and he sees what's going on, you see a communication happening there. But what they did very well with music is take you through that journey. So you start off with a hint of it, no, right? And then it moves on, it's got other elements going on. But by the time you get to that climax, what you have is a conversation that turns basically into a full orchestration. And I use that without, I absorbed it, but the way I end up using that is often when I'm writing something. I've got an underlying melody, just like any song would, right? But as I want to introduce new pieces, often you'll get a bit of that sound a few measures ahead of when that thing actually comes in. Sometimes I'll take that thing and I'll reverse it so that you get kind of a feel of that sound before that main thing comes in. But overall, the one thing I really like about it is that composition and how it actually walks you through the story all the way to a climax, and then actually trails you off. Anyway, the whole composition.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I'm gonna comment on this in a bit. Razi, what do you think?
I think I just left my hand up, but it's an interesting, got me thinking about where really successful pieces within the story come out as audio importance. And one of the biggest failures is when you're just having a band lip sync on stage and it doesn't have anything to do with the story, but it was required by the studio that put out the video, has a music label also, and they needed their artist to be in it. And something with Fine Young Cannibals was just an example of that I watched a couple of months ago. There was like no synergy between the music marketing part and the story.
Or a big muscly saxophone player covered in oil playing saxophone.
I think that
on
is
a
the
beach.
counterexample. That is the pinnacle of that show, is that movie, is the oily sax man.
He was in didn't Reservation Dogs hunt that guy down and put him, and when they finally made it to LA, they had that guy as an old guy, still muscly, still oiled up, playing saxophone on on the beach. It was fucking great.
Well, I'm glad he's still getting work. I mean, it's an
Yeah.
role.
Oh, you're that guy. He was also in played for Tina Turner. Tina Turner, yeah. Mad Max. We didn't talk about Mad Max. We didn't talk about Fury Road. We didn't talk. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I just totally interrupted you, Razi.
No, I didn't even have a thought. You just, my hand was left up accidentally, and I think that the incongruous and ill-fitting music in the middle of an otherwise decent show is something to consider and think about. I don't know what it does for us, but it's definitely something that happens for political reasons rather than artistic ones.
Yes. Ivan, did you want to chime in on something?
Yeah, okay, at first the movies will have, particularly movies, like there's a difference between like bringing in having a real band play a scene, or do a thing, and then that ends up in the soundtrack and ends up moving forward because of it, versus like the studio assembled band. It's like that always ends up feeling more fake, or contrived, because like that you're never going to see them live because they don't actually exist. The oily guy with the saxophone is a classic example of that, because you're never going to see that band live. They don't exist. At the same time, like you could potentially go see People Are Strange performed live by the band that actually performed that on that soundtrack. And they will do a great job. That was one of the shining moments of that soundtrack. Um, Also, then to diverge from that, I do know the guy that did the soundtrack, like the audio, like mixing and mastering for Das Boot, the like remaster of that, and he also did Nixon, the movie. And he's like, go see the remastered Das Boot in a big theater with a good sound, and you will be the audio will place you in underwater in a U-boat getting variously beat up by surface ships, like, and you will feel it, like the claustrophobia and how big and reverby everything around you is like it becomes really a feature of the movie.
Did that inspire your music?
um
Because that's what we're talking about here.
yeah, and I think that has, because like the showing off the space and really that has, yeah, most certainly.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
And like, if Peter's out there, he should contact one of us and try to show up on a Saturday, because we would love to talk to him.
That would be legendary. Firstly, so just FYI, the song they use in fucking Lost Boys is "I Still Believe" by The Call. They do a cover of it, and if you haven't got into The Call, you should. Really, 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 really good band from the 80s. Like when it was all like synths and guitar, and it was kind of very U2 inspired, but not, but really American, very dark. I think they were a Christian band too, I'm not sure. Great album. Fucking good album. Like, holy shit, stands up so well. Next, another really, like, on the subject of Dust Boat is Dunkirk, where the sound design and the composition dovetail. And so there's the Spitfire engines go raka chaka raka chaka raka, and then the cellos come in and they're going digga 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 digga, mixed in with the clock, and it's fucking brilliant. And obviously, immediately, and I think they did this in Fury Road as well, where the chattering of the engine starts the soundtrack. Obviously, the exciting thing there is you should do that too. Use an engine, use something to be bringing in parts of the song. Thinking outside the plugins. If Christopher Nolan, or that was Hans Zimmer, if Hans Zimmer was going to remix your song, what would Hans Zimmer do? Like, think about it. Become Hans Zimmer for just a moment and go, if I could, what happens if I? Like, what's going on here? Are you pulling it up out of this mechanical fucking hell, and then it's going into this song, and then it goes back into the mechanical hell, then it spits it back out again? What's going on? Use sound design and all that sort of stuff. Get inspired by the movies. Another really fantastic thing. Yes, you did say Ferry Road, Diana. Another really great thing, and this is interesting, Brett, you touched on this a little bit, is the idea that there's a theme, but it gets popped up throughout the music, throughout the movie. And every time it comes up, it becomes darker. It becomes more emotionally taxing, because more and more stuff more and more context has been added to that thing. So that thing becomes deeper, darker, stronger. So my question is, excuse me, is how do you do that in an album? Like, do you bring, like, for example, going back to opera, again, excuse me, in Rigoletto, the theme is ba, 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 ba. It's just these trumpets hitting this one note. And the chords of the orchestra are changing and growing. And that's the theme of the curse. And what happens is a guy curses Rigoletto. because Rigoletto's just a prick. That's a real smart ass. And when these things start going horribly wrong, like, God, opera is just pure drama. That theme is mentioned, and this guy ends up getting executed, and oh, it's awful. It's just, oh, it's a fantastic opera. It's a masterpiece, but what happens is terrifying. And what's crazy is that the entire opera is, I think it was inspired by Don Giovanni, Mozart's Don Giovanni, where he literally gets dragged to hell at the end. But the opera is presented as what's called an opera buffa, which means a funny opera. So it's got all of these moments of comedy mixed with horrifying darkness, and that adds to the terror of this opera. Like, they're putting this terror, like really fucked up shit, surrounded by all of this comic stuff. It's supremely fucked up. But the question is, like, you know, so this theme gets mentioned. It's got a point. Stay with me. The theme gets mentioned when this guy's getting executed, and the guy who accused him hums the beginning of the theme, then the executor hums it, and then the guy who gets executed hums it, and then he dies. And there's all of these moments where the theme gets mentioned. And my question is, I mean, how do you bring that into an album where that theme gets mentioned across different tracks, but the objective is we don't want it to, all the tracks to sound the same?
I think you do that. You can do that a lot of different ways. Obviously, you can do that musically, you know, in that you can repeat certain sounds. So if you go back to the Terminator theme, you know, to use that, I don't care where you're at. Da-dum, dum, da-dum is the Terminator's coming, you know? If you use do-do-do-do, you know, you're in the Twilight Zone. And it's these seeds that latch on. You know, they've been called hooks, you know, previously. But they're short little bursts. They're short little snippets of sound that are easily repeatable, that are usually placed clear and up front, without much background initially, so that the listener is primed to hear that. And then with that, and what you build around it, when you do a callback to that, you know, it does a mental reset on you, and it's like, oh, the Terminator's back, you know? And you can do that through songs, and you can do that through entire albums, and you can do that through entire concepts across many albums. And I'll give you, you know, Skinny Puppy had Rivers and Rivers End, and they did callbacks there. Overkill had, I can't remember what it is. I think it's actually Overkill, in which they had a certain bar, a few bars, and that's all they would reference to tie one song to another. And this has been also done in classical as well.
It's something I've never done, and I think I'm going to add it to the list of things that are a callback that I'm going to do in this new Angelspit album. That, thank you guys, is now taking shape, even though I'm about to release the cover on. Oh, Jesus Christ, next week. It's really funny how you got to keep that engine going. And it's not really, I don't know if it's an obligation. I don't know what it is. And it's funny, oh, I'm going to get dark for a minute. It's interesting, the thing about music is it's like, I can't have anything terrible happen to myself or my life because I've got to get this fucking album out. And then by the time that album's out, you're halfway through or the next one is already taking off. It's like, oh, I can't let anything bad happen to myself. I've got to look after myself because I've got to get this fucking album out. I saw this play last night, a reading of, I don't remember her name. I should be shot. And her best friend was James Baldwin, the great American James Baldwin, who was a massive figure in the civil rights movement. And she was an author, and she wrote, oh, I suck. This is terrible. I forgot her name. Mind-blowing play. And it was about, she was dying of pancreatic cancer while she wrote this final incredible fucking story. It was just, oh, I'm not doing it justice right now. Anyway, the reason I bring it up is that it really put a lot of things into perspective. And I was just thinking how there's magic in this. Like there was an undertone of magic and empathy and the need to heal that wasn't said. You just felt it. It's like, God damn, the guy who wrote this. And one of the guys I was working with, Matt, actually from Auto Dealer, was saying this will end up on Broadway. He's won a Tony. She's been nominated for Tonys. This is going to end up on Broadway. It's like, wow, we get to see it first. Fucking insane. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. Do we want to keep talking about movie soundtracks, or do we want to talk about something else? Because we flagged a few things. Brett, do you want to bring it up? Rezi, I wanted to throw it to Brett, but did you want to?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind saying that, like, there's been a couple of periods in my experience writing where it's kind of funny to use like extended titles and references and having leitmotif for things throughout an album and having, you know, themes that recur, like not funny haha, but funny like, oh, clever. But there's a line between like the pretense of I heard this being done and I want to adapt it, and having it be an honest mechanism for conveying something that's true to the song and craft that you're doing. And, you know, I mean, maybe people overstep that line, maybe I have, but it's certainly motivating to emulate what goes on in film score composition just throughout the course of an album, because Carl, like you said, and like we go back to, these are movies without a movie. There's soundtracks for movies that don't exist that they're trying to make in a lot of cases. At least I believe that. So adopting some of these techniques and tempering them so that they fit in stylistically and not too clever, but you know, maybe they work. It's a fine line to thread, but hopefully it's been fucking fun exploring them and working them into your own compositions and recordings and album length stuff, like it has been for me, as a thing to talk about too with your bandmates, you know, like as you're making these decisions, even if it's not just in your own mind. We've had some cool discussions and times referencing stuff that exists out in the world and bringing it into your own music.
And you know, the great thing about having the concept, it's called the leitmotif, where that motif keeps coming back in. Thank you for bringing that up, you little Wagnerian, you. When that comes up, it can always inspire new ideas, whether you're going to go with it or not. But like you said, then comes to the tricky bit when you throw it to the bandmates. And the bandmates might go, Brett, do we want to start a therapy session about this?
Not so much a therapy session, but you know, that doesn't mean that we can't share good advice with each other. So yeah, the kind of concept of this is you know, because we're creative individuals, when we get into doing our thing and we get invested in it, you know, it becomes it becomes tricky sometimes when you hand this to bandmates. Let me go back in time here for a minute. When I was a drummer, I had ideas for songs in my head, and I wrote lyrics. And then I would hand this concept to two guitarists and a bassist who had no idea what the hell I was talking about. And it would go a completely different direction. And there's a something in the back of your head that kind of nags you a little bit. And so, you know, obviously everyone's got the same goal, so, you know, it's not complaint. Everyone's happy with the final outcome. So it's not like you didn't benefit, but nonetheless, you know, there's I don't know, there's like a dissonance or something about it, maybe it's just me, but that was the kind of genesis for the question. I'm just, you know, my way of working that out is really just kind of try to communicate. I will give you, in some cases, the same original music has become so heavily modified that it doesn't matter anymore, and that's been a solution. But I figured it was a good thing to kind of, you know, start a conversation on. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Let's go. Razi, what are your thoughts?
I think there probably is a conversation getting started right now, but mine sort of ends with you just find musicians where you really want their stuff. Just, the end. You're all you'll get what you need and they'll get to contribute. But the joke I'm making also is like that selection bias that we have. Like there's a million bands forming right now because um, they already know some people who are into music, not because they sought out those musicians that had those particular skills. And we never hear from them because they didn't make something brilliant. But there are 3 bands every day or year that rise to the top because they did have that synergy. And so I'm not necessarily aware of a way to cause it to happen early in your career, but as you go on, you get to be your Trent and Atticus kind of thing where I'm guessing how they work together. They're just like, yeah, I like what you do. I like what you do. Let's throw them together and mostly trust that it's going to work because we have an aesthetic goal and appreciation for each other's contributions. And I know that the people that I have right now in my life that contribute stuff, I just accept that that's because I like what they do and I want that particular contribution. Please do this. And as you sort of bridged into the um, communication being early and establishing boundaries early, I need a drum part for this 8 bars. I want toms is a big difference from we're in a band. You got to write the drums. I got to write the guitar. I hope this works. Oh. And someplace in between those, like I found that my whole musical life changing and evolving. And I've been lucky to work by chance with people who contributed the perfect stuff most of the time. And were free to say, I hate that when I contributed something that they didn't like. And it doesn't always feel great, but it ends up being the correct collaboration and making a good outcome and setting you up for the next, interactions. So yeah, some things like that.
Thank you. This is going to turn into therapy. Brett, I'm going after you. Ivan, go.
This is most certainly going to turn into therapy. But when you're writing music, you're becoming a parent of that piece. Like they're your little child, and you envision this bright, shiny future for that child. And then they graduate from high school and go on to college, and they choose to do all the wrong or right things. And what you have to do is remain supportive the entire time. And so passing the latest demo off to the band members to treat or mistreat it. You kind of have to step back a little bit and just and assume and feel and know that they're they have the same end goal. Like they want to make something great. They may have a different approach to it, and maybe that's okay, because maybe they're seeing something you couldn't see. At the same time, if they're just not seeing anything, you do need to step up and say something. It's super complicated as soon as you start working with other people on something that you've been working on, because you're more emotionally invested in it than they are. And how well they're able to understand that is kind of important to the equation of getting it across the finish line. Using as an example, I have this very nicely written piece that was very inspired by Carpenter's that movie about the devil in the cask down in the basement. They made it at that abandoned church in LA.
Every fucking movie ever made.
But
Nosferatu.
no, this was son of a bitch. What was it? Still working on getting my brain back, but it was a great movie. It Lord of Darkness. yeah. But it was well written. I really like it. It really mostly works. Um, yeah, when I passed it off to our vocals guy, somehow he went from that movie to They Live. And for a while, I was just like, "Dude, what the fuck, dude? What the fuck? Were you paying any attention to my statements? Are you paying attention to this at all?" But in the end, it actually works. So you know, I'm still happy. Uh, my child ended up, going to med school instead of pre-law. My only thought on that. He's still in a good spot. I'm happy.
Because God forbid that your child become a fucking artist.
Oh, I absolutely don't want that.
No.
They should also never date an artist.
Yeah. Which reminds me of a joke and a lifestyle. Thank you, Ivan. Brett, help.
So I'll say I also had a cool. Has anyone seen the Interstellar Drum Derby with Primus? Has anyone been keeping up with that? All right. Well, if not, I do recommend that you fire that up. It's quite enlightening. Essentially, the premise is they needed a new drummer. So instead of going through the usual pool, they sent out a worldwide invite. Anyone is welcome to put in a submission to join Primus. What became interesting about that was, you're dealing with Les and I forget the guitarist's name, but there is just the two of them and the person who they're essentially interviewing for the job. Everyone who didn't have the skill to play it, right, they're immediately out. So where it starts getting immediately interesting is when you're down to that last 10. Now you're talking about very, very qualified musicians who know what they're doing, who can do it left, right, and center, upside down. And there's minor style differences. They're on to what they like. What became obvious to me about this, and is the point, is the thing that where I knew and could pick it out, all right, that's going to be the guy who wins, was the conversation they ended up having at the restaurant. And where I'm going with that is, there is still, that in order to make it work, it's like Ivan was saying as well, you've got to have that human communication, which, all human communication is kind of frustrating.
Thanks, man. Firstly, I am aware that I have this habit of saying no. That my immediate response is no. And I'm really concerned about this. And I know, and people have told me that I do this thing. But what happens is it's no. And then 3 minutes later, it's maybe. Or I'm not interested in this. And then it becomes maybe. And then it becomes, oh, try. And it goes, okay. Then it's fuck yeah. But that might be an hour. It might be a day. It might be a month between no and fuck yeah. And it's, and I do this in everything, and it's a problem that I'm trying to, that's one of the reasons I wear a mask, is because they can't see my whole body going, no. Like I'll get this request to edit a podcast, and I just go, oh, fucking hell. And it takes 15 minutes. It's no big deal. It doesn't take 5 hours. It's this tiny little thing. I've always wondered why the fuck I do this thing. So having known, and I've known about this for a long time, is that I'm trying to say, let's try it. And I remember with Jekyll Switch, there came this moment where, and everything was, yeah, let's try it, to where it just, I got worn down. I said no. And I regret that. It was my fuck up. Bands are the hardest thing in the world, man. They are so fucking hard. And it's really interesting. So you want to make something great versus you want to be heard and you want to be valued and you want to be appreciated. Because I'm finding increasingly when people join bands, they're wounded little chickens. And you've gone through no, and rejection your whole fucking life. And now you're in a band and it's no, and rejection. And it's a horrible cliche, but you're trying to always say yes and. Another thing is friends versus bandmates. I can't. It's really weird at the moment how increasingly I remember you never made friends with your workmates. They were, here's Alex. They were like work colleagues, and then you had your friends. But increasingly, I am seeing people who their friends are their work colleagues. And that's a weird thing to me. And I've noticed that's really taken off since COVID. Because people don't have time anymore because people are being worked to death. You don't have time for friends anymore. And it's a really similar thing with friends versus bandmates. That, it's hard. It's a really massive people skill. Alex, do you know what we're talking about? Because we're talking about fucking dealing with people in bands when ideas don't match. Something that came up that I really like, and I'll get to the point, is that if you say, Ivan, you mentioned this, if you say, okay, this is what we're going for, and it's going to be a soundtrack in this movie at this point. That's a great idea. Because the amount of fucking people who I have fucking run into, and they're the best guitarist ever. Oh, they're the best this, they're the best that. Oh, they're so... And then you sit them down and they don't listen. They don't understand. They just want to do this. They don't want to listen. And that's the fucking thing. And that's... when I was in university, it was drilled into us. Shut up. Watch their fingers. It's their turn to talk. And when you know what the conversation is, then you can join in. But until then, shut up and give a compliment to what that person is saying. I remember in uni, the one thing that they said is that you don't watch your ass. You watch everyone else's ass. And if there's 6 people in the band, it's not one person watching your ass. It's now 5 people watching your ass. You're watching everyone else's. You are supporting this thing. It is a communication. The amount of people who don't listen, I've kind of given up. I cannot find people who listen. They're just not going blah, 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 talk, patch, wee. You're not fucking listening. You just go blah, 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 blah. No fucking concept. Drives me crazy. I just can't do it anymore. Doesn't that suck? I've given up. Carl said no. Therapy for that. So yeah, in future it's going to be, this is the part of the movie that we're doing, and if they say, I don't like that movie, say, oh, well, great seeing you, fuck off, bye. Rezi?
I'm glad you broached being on the other side of it, because that was on my mind too. Like thinking about being in the room for a thing happening there, and there's an idea being bandied about, and there's a recording being made, and you shut the fuck up until you have the thing to contribute. And when you do it with the full authority of your expertise and belief and creativity, and you bring it. And this reminds me a little bit of, or hopefully you do. I'm saying that would be a good way to operate. Maybe you don't, but I'm saying it can work. I think it might have been the first demo that I recorded over at here in Boston. I was working as a assistant engineer to get recording time. The engineer was Joe Cuneo, who had like Pixies and Human Sexual Response and stuff up on the wall, Think Tree. And I was like, he's kind of heavy. Like it's cool to be working with this guy. We brought my stuff in, and I had written a bass line on bling, 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 bling on the keyboards. And it was maybe like a sampled-ish kind of bass guitar kind of thing. And the person that held the bass in the band was my bandmate, Jason. And so he played it on the recording, even though I'd written it on keyboards and he wasn't a bassist by training or anything. And Joe like kind of stepped up to it, and he was like I can do something for you guys with this. And I was like, yeah, well, let's just hear it. And he brought like a feel and timing, and he didn't have to rehearse this part to get it, even though it was in like, F sharp. It wasn't even in a normal bass kind of key. The thing that I learned from this moment was, I don't know, what did I learn? There are things to say, yeah, let's try it too. And I guess I rededicated myself to being better at listening to when people have something to offer And also, let's face it, learning how to really translate these things. So if I needed to play it, I could just fucking play it and maybe make it as good as it could be. But being able to bring that, I don't know if it made or broke the recording. Like, that's really not the point. But the feeling that I got and the memory of how to approach communicating in a group of people and being able to offer these things, and knowing when you do have something to offer that it might change somebody's life a little bit, even if it doesn't, fix the recording.
Yeah, man, thanks. It's really fascinating. If you ever have the chance to work with someone who is world class, they have people skills. They have remarkable fucking people skills. And it's the people skills that got them there. I go out on a limb there. Which is why I'm not world class, because I'm a rotten bastard. Alex, talk to me. Thanks, Brent.
I feel like sometimes I'm the person in the band who doesn't listen to their bandmates, even though I really try to. And also, I don't know if it fits the conversation, but I love all my bandmates, but I felt something like things were easier when we were just 4 people, not 5, because the chance that one can't at a certain rehearsal time has like increased exponentially. So sometimes less is more when it comes to band members, I think. But I really miss having a band member for my more electronic stuff, because I feel like it really helps me to push on forward and not get lost in the source, and have someone who relies on me who also helps me produce something.
Totally agree. Whenever I work with someone and they don't end up killing me, or them, that is a fun game to play. Is what is a completely weird, abstract way for us to go about this song? And what you're doing is you're inspiring a part of your brain that problem solves, because songwriting is fucking problem solving and getting ready to catch those random ideas that just randomly drop into your field. They're like fucking atoms in a set. That's how fast they are. Whizzing around, there it is, and it's gone. You got to go catch it, go with it. I would be advising also in a jam to watch people's fingers, watch what they're playing, and it's handy to have a little bit of theory. So you can start having a musical conversation. That's what it's about. It's a fucking musical fucking conversation. And that involves speaking and replying and agreeing. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, oh, awesome. And it also does, I think it really does require a bit of music theory as well. And if you don't have any music theories, just stick to the black notes, because it'll all work, because that's pentatonic and it works. Yeah, anyway, that's all I got. Does anybody else want to jump in on this? Or did we want to talk about something else? Because we had something else we wanted to talk about. What were we talking about? Fucking guys, help me.
Razi had a topic. I can't remember it now.
Razi, go.
Oh, you mean in our list of topics that we might talk about today?
Yes,
Yeah.
that one.
Sometimes cheap gear is better than expensive gear
That
or
was it.
software.
Okay, Razi, rule the floor. Go.
I was hoping everybody else would have so much to join in and chime in and pitch in with this one, because I didn't actually have any specific examples, but it's kind of a ethos to go by, in that maybe in a perfect world there are free or frugal or cost-effective alternatives to things that are just expensive and might not pack the same kind of benefit as the free option. So maybe there's a good comparison to be made for a piece of software that is very expensive with one that is very inexpensive. There might be a comparison to draw between a technique in production and musicianship that is free versus one that's very expensive or costly. And then maybe there's some definitions of what expensive and costly really mean in those contexts. And maybe, Alex, you've got the first word on that.
My first experience with this was, although a piece of gear isn't bad, my first synth was for Dark Energy. and it's like a really nice sounding synth, but also really experimental. So you can make like really harsh, noisy, screaming sounds. And then I really learned that thing, and I went to the music store, and they had like a Minimoog Voyager XL on display. I thought, wow, if my 400 euro synth sounds so good, then this 5,000 euro synth must sound like multiple times as good.
Yeah, just do the math. It's multiplication, clearly.
Yeah, so I put on my headphones and get in front of the thing, and I saw that the employee looking, does he know what he's doing? But at this point, it's sort of new. Uh, and I turned the knobs, turned up some sounds, and was like really disappointed because it sounded like nothing like my little synthesizer, and it was much more smooth and didn't have the edge. And no, I know that this synth is famously not as gritty as others, but yeah, that was really disappointing in the moment.
Thank you, Brett, and thanks for looking after that, Razi. Brett, go.
Just like Carl has taught us, don't underestimate the DIY, where it comes to both free and expensive. Early forays into music had me playing cans and using a straight up old school like 80s model, tape recorder, not Jambox or anything else. I was able to do distortion with that thing by taking a second one and literally doing an air gap. So any of that stuff now would be like highly experimental because everything is nice and polished. At the time, it was literally just what you could get away with. The next thing I would say is your DAW. You're going to have something to record it, and this doesn't necessarily have to be your computer or a computer. There are plenty of hardware units out there that will do MIDI sequencing and recording, and these have always existed. But at the same point, if you don't have some place to land your ideas, then you better be very good at remembering them, writing them down something. So in that regard, there's a free DAW. It's extremely powerful. It's Cakewalk Sonar. It's put out by BandLabs. Just go to BandLabs, sign up for a free account, and pull down something that will easily power your MIDI, your audio, and the works. There's a learning curve to it, but so is everything else. In my use, I graduated off of Cakewalk, and I went to FL Studio. In that regard, part of the allure of it was pay once, have it forever, every upgrade, the works. And quite honestly, over time, especially, that has been the single best buy I have made musically. I have probably given them $2,000 over the years, and I've been at it for freaking 20 years. In that regard, it's far more powerful, even more powerful than the Curse Mode. That's kind of a gambit, kind of a range for you. After that, gear, start used. Get these old synthesizers, watch Vulture Culture, check this stuff out, man. But if you can, get us Patreon, so that way when the video drops, you're not stuck behind the curve of now that instrument's 10 times the price it was before it hit the airwaves. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as it has a sound that inspires you to do something. I think that's probably about it.
Thank you very much. Well said. Ivan?
Yeah, in the end, you can't beat the gear you have. And the software you have. There's nothing you're going to, go out and buy that is going to make things that much better. maybe once in a while that'll happen, but in general, like the gear you have is the most valuable gear you got, or the most valuable gear out there, because you have it. It's right there. You can just start using it. Learn and use the crap out of the gear you have, because like I you see this in this like enterprise software world all the time. People will go out and blow $1 million on a framework or something, and then they use 10% of it, and 3 years later they're like, well, it failed because it didn't do all the things we wanted. Well, you didn't try doing any of the things you wanted. You just kind of used it a little bit and barely, and now like you've just wasted money and resources, where you could have actually tried and gotten a lot further. Same for gear and music software. I mean, the better you know it and the more you use it, the further you will get. Because then you'll discover that even stuff that you found because of bad gear turns out to actually be pretty good.
Thank you. Rosie, I'll go in after you.
Alex brings up this sort of tension between not having enough time for DIY and, well, I bring up the other side of the tension is that there's a threshold of investment worthy in picking up DIY skills. And the couple that I cite, let me focus on synths. I remember, like, I've always had I took stuff apart and couldn't put them back together as a kid. That was just, I think maybe we all were that kind of kid. But at some point I did get over that threshold of being able to put things back together correctly or better. And, just being able to sort of locate the service manual for your synth. Like I got the how to set the oscillator scaling and tuning and stuff from Sequential Circuits, and spent some time with a tuner and did the work of making this thing calibrated properly. And that, I haven't had to bring it into a shop to have basic things like pots replaced, or even just throwing the right kind of deoxidizing spray into the things, and accumulating this knowledge. You can end up having a good investment that is then just minutes of the next time you have to have it done, versus bringing the thing in a vehicle to a shop and spending the money on having it done. Those are a little more obvious and easy decisions to make. And the same, there's people that buy a guitar and still need to have it restrung professionally, bring it in. I know that there are people who probably have brought the guitar in to be tuned for the first several years, or had their guitar instructor do it a little while, I don't know about years, of their pedagogy with learning how to play guitar. But I think that there's certainly a line of, knowing how to set it up, and knowing what the string height for spec should be, and knowing what, then maybe you get to do the neck relief a little bit, and then maybe you've gotten into the fret work and maybe filing a high fret or two, and then you get this whole sort of set of skills that once in a while you can still bring it to somebody who's way better at this shit than you are. And even though they might have to redo some of the stuff you've done, you've saved and invested in the knowledge and confidence that you can customize and adjust and work on and personalize your instruments without having to go to somebody to explain to them what to do. And I think that there's definitely an argument for that side of the value of that carrying forward, where you don't have enough time to DIY it, but do you really have enough time accumulated over the next 30 years that you're going to be 50 years that you're going to be doing this to do all of those things? And do the math, and it might balance out.
Beautifully said, thank you. As far as free gear, I think this is the greatest thing I ever got. This Yamaha piece of rubbish, and I fucking love it. Oh yeah, here it comes. Oh. Yeah, feel it. That is a goddamn bossa nova. So mum and dad got me this thing for free when I went to Australia. It was in a Goodwill and they gave it to them. I've written 1.5 Angelspit albums on this, possibly 2, and 2 Ice Planet albums on this. And it's great because there's no fucking distractions. It's a piece of rubbish, and that's what it is. And if it sounds good on this, it will sound bloody amazing on anything else. And I found it to be, I think everybody needs a piece of garbage that you got for free, and you stick batteries in it, and you can have it beside your bed, and you can just go plonk, 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 and write it down, or put your phone in to record and go plonk, 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 plonk. And also, man, I got to tell you, the great thing about having bossa beats and all that shit is that I would never think to do some of the stuff that bossa beats do, or mamba, or foxtrot. I'd never think of that. But there they are, and they're really interesting beats, because those things are designed for dancing. And if you start putting that into your music, there's some really interesting things going on, and the tango is devastating. I was lucky enough to be gifted an Emax once. I stayed at a friend's house when we were on tour and had a good chat about gear, and then crashed in his top room, and the door was open, and I closed the door, and behind it was a fucking Emax, and I screamed, and he went, "Oh my God, what's that?" And I go, "You got an Emax? Because you can have it." I went, "Oh my God, thank you." So I carted it around on the rest of the tour. Band wasn't impressed. And it's funny, I couldn't get it working because there was a disc, it didn't have the disc. And then through a very long amount of fucking around, I accidentally stumbled across the disc, and I thought the Emax was Cactus. But it's beautiful, it's sitting right behind me. Also, Seth was kind enough to gift me his DX7 in a box, which is it's a fucking DX7, so I hate it. But then I listened to it and I went, this is really good. Great fucking synth. So yeah, it's very interesting that when you buy something, you value it more. That's just the way my head works. I don't actively look for things that are free or cheap just because my brain goes, that's junk. But when somebody gifts it to me, it's like, I think sometimes the universe is throwing me a curveball and a blessing. And it's like, like Mark was kind enough to give me his Rhythm Wolf, the Echo Rhythm Wolf, which is, I think, one of the most hated drum machines of all time. I actually fucking love it. The hi-hats are great. The snare's fucking punchy as fuck. And I've used it heaps. Normally I wouldn't use it, but I'm using it. So yeah, and I've always thought it would be fun to do something using a whole bunch of gear that was free, was gifted to me. Raziel, what do you think about this?
I would hope that, and who among us has not done it, that everybody here has had a speaker, Casio tone with beats left in their studio and sampled it and released that music to date at least once or twice. I know when you played that beat, it reminded me exactly of the break in one of my things that I've done that has that tone. And yeah, I mean, it's nice. I like that. That's all.
They're great. And the good thing about sampling these as well is they get very gritty very quickly because they're real-time generated FM tones. I won't use the actual bass sound, I'll just use the drum. And the thing to remember about FM is it's got real good fucking bass because the bass is sine wave generated. So it's there, it is alive.
There's an argument for taking the audio out if it has one, or wiring a transformer across the speakers and taking it directly instead of sampling the speaker, if you're trying to get that fidelity.
Or if you're feeling crazy, run it through a fucking Marshall or a big fucking speaker and then record that shit. Did I see someone else's hand up and then they put it down? Alex, talk to me.
Yeah, I don't really get these Casios. I think it's something personal, but I think the same thing for me would be like an old Hammond organ, and sorry, and not the ones people want, but like early digital ones or something, and maybe electronic pianos and harmonicas and stuff like that.
If you could be fucked, use what's around. And it could be very pleasing and surprising to see what is there, how well it distorts. If you run it through, like if you compress the shit out of it and then really start pummeling that bass, magical things can start happening. Of course, you can't link it like time, clock it to your music, or maybe some of them you can, but you know, then you can sample it and move it up and down so the beats match. Know what I mean? Brett, what do you think?
To Alex's point, I mean, before I bought a synthesizer, you know, my first freebie instrument that was actually an electric piano, and some of the keys didn't work, so I couldn't use those, and that was all there was to it. The ones that did work, you know, I sat there, I plugged it through a distortion, and quite honestly, it's going back to those, you know, those recording, you know, those tape recorders. I would sit there and I would sit there and I would play a little part into a tape recorder, and then I would set that tape recorder off and sit there and play the drums onto another tape recorder, and that whole thing be a thing. So now I feel you on the organs and on the electric pianos. In fact, I was even going through the Kurzweil. There's a whole section of electronic pianos, and I about went on a whole editing spree, but that wasn't what I was there for, so I had to rein myself in.
Which is very difficult to do on a Kurzweil, because you can just keep fucking going. It's also really, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's important to know where you started from, and it's important to remember the process in which you used to make music when it was starting out and everything was fresh and fantastic and limitless, and it was like a incredible high. To remember where that was. And I've got a feeling Alex and fucking Ivan are looking at fucking reverb right now. Oh yeah, bullshit, you fucking are. Anyway, because when you get in a rut, going back to that ecthos, and it's actually one of the reasons I got this thing, to go back to that magical place will inspire the magic again. It will very possibly will. Ivan, what are you looking at on reverb?
Nothing.
Shit.
But you know what? In the front room here at the house, I've got a like 130-year-old, you know, just piano that, you know, like ivory. You know,
is it upright or grand?
Upright.
Do you take the top off and do you sample that thing? And is it out of tune?
It is out of tune.
Don't tune it up. There's magic in that thing.
Yeah, no, there is. One of the keys is dead. Some of
and
the
so when you hit it, it goes
missing.
clink, clink, clink.
No, it just makes no sound whatsoever. I mean, other than no, it just does nothing. Like
it makes a mechanical sound.
It doesn't even do that.
Oh.
Like the hammer's not moving. But like, you know, fortunately, that's way down on the bottom end. That it's.
Have you recorded it?
Not yet, and I do.
Okay, all you need are 257s. Don't need expensive bullshit mics. Are you going for 57s in your hand right now? That's all you need. 257s, low and high. Stick one in the middle if you're feeling crazy. Even better, look at you with your little fucking zoomy zoom. Record it. I am telling you, dude. It's. You see, pianos sit there. And they're pulling in electro-harmonic signals from the fucking sky, and they're sucking up. Oh no, Carl and Ivan are talking about magic. Oh no. And they're sucking up all the magic in the earth, and they're just sitting there brewing it, and all you have to do is put your fingers on it, and she's gonna give you songs, baby. She's got 130 years of ideas.
And I'm absolutely certain that you know, the muse is just kind of sitting on top.
Oh yeah.
You know, just waiting for me to show up, and you know, I'm getting my mojo back, and me and the music have to go have a discussion.
Record it in one of your fucking tracks, and I'm telling you, man, it's going to add
nobody's
magic.
going to reproduce that.
Also, you know, holding down chords, yelling into it, strumming it, scratching the springs, all that shit.
But the other thing I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned this to other people, and I've probably even mentioned this here, like. You have the old like you know, weird janky beats that come out of like the Yamaha, you know, like, you know, old school foxtrot, and you know, pick one. It's got it. Um, there's something to be said, especially if you're into making music. Um, just find an open night at a dance studio and where they're, if you have never danced, maybe one that's got some, a little bit of lesson going on, and just go, try out ballroom, because like you end up like really tuning your body to be in tune with these older, like less commonly used, beat patterns. And you can't beat like foxtrot is fun. Um, uh, and like you get away from like the standard four on the floor thing really fast then, and that it opens up the mental opportunity to start writing stuff that is a bit more engaging and danceable at the same time, which is great.
I totally agree. And that goes into the rant of how important dance is, because I've kind of stopped dancing. It's something I've noticed about myself. And when I stop dancing, my body starts seizing up and depression starts creeping in. Normally, I'm bopping all over the house, doing the washing, da 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 da, but I've stopped doing that. And it's also interesting that that is connected to my own personal choice of rhythm and sense of rhythm and all that jazz. And yeah, man, that is so true. You know what? When you're in that rut, go to a dance class, specifically a dance class,
Yes.
and it will.
No, and the double advantage, like, I'm looking around at the audience here. We're all a bunch of guys. We go to a, like a ballroom dance event, and you're just candy as far as like all the other participants are going. You're always going to find a partner because there's always going to be more women at those classes than men. And they are interested in finding a partner to do the dance with. And they make the whole process a whole lot less difficult.
Wow.
And it results in it also, like it becomes self-encouraging because it's fun.
Mm. I haven't been called candy in a long time.
There are a lot of open dances in LA. And one thing I noticed about LA like ballroom dancers is they know what they're doing.
That's scary to me because
But they're also very forgiving on that and like
right.
cool about it. I think it's because like there's so much entertainment industry down there that like you just end up having it, which is great because I've done ballroom dance in other locations where that wasn't a thing, and it's a train wreck.
All right. Oh, wow. I feel challenged now. Thank you. So I want everybody to get challenged there and fucking ballroom dancing. And start by watching Strictly Ballroom. But maybe don't, because the dances in that are so fucking good. Jesus Christ. What's his name? Mercurio? Paul Mercurio? Christ, that guy can dance. Resi, what do you got?
And if you do find yourself at a nominal dance studio, and you're not comfortable quite jumping into, so to speak, the physicality of dance, maybe they offer theatrical fencing lessons. This is what happened to me. I went into the place to do some volunteering for guitar lessons, and he was like, well, it's required that you do this too. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, with the thing and the lunge and parry. And I was like, okay. So I did a whole bunch of theatrical fencing. I mean, there's a bit of the competitive fencing spirit in that, I guess, but it was mainly how to do the fucking Pirates of Penzance lightsaber bullshit stuff when the director calls to do it. And it had some of the things that you're talking about there with the physicality.
Good job. Good job. It is important that because like a lot of musicians sit on their bum and you don't get active, and that does creak the body up quite a lot. And you know, also things like, oh no, I'm sorry, we're going to talk about MAJIK again. It's really important to like keep those channels and stuff open. Oh, you fucking look at you guys, look at you. Sitting there, I want to talk about this. It's, you know, you got to keep that, because healthy body, man. It's keeping that beat going. All right, and then we were going to talk about buying gear or something, because obviously we don't want to talk about MAJIK anymore.
It's not that I don't personally want to talk about MAJIK anymore. It's just I think I might have a different definition of MAJIK. And also, you guys, what is it with pianos? The hippie that I bought mine from 30 years ago, sounded just like you guys. The things, the spirits in it, and the songs that it's got in her and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'll buy that, sure.
Okay.
Pianos have those.
Yeah, they do. They do. Obviously, you can't see it because.
Oh, but I hear it.
Well, this is just like pure music, man. Like at the Ebel, they've got pianos. They've got old fucking Steinways. I think there's a Bosendorf in there as well.
With the bottom octave, the extra.
I think so, maybe. It's not that one. It's just the regular 88. But those pianos, and you open them and they smell like old piano. And I'm telling you, man, people, if you love your piano and then the person passes away, part of them stays in there.
I know that there's a physicality that we miss with the purely electronic things. And as synthesizer players, primarily with the thrust of this being industrial electronic, where there's a lot of that, moving over to the clavier that has actual vibrations in the room, big difference. It does things. And you're right, there are open the lid and touch things and hammers, and it's a percussion instrument, and you're banging it, and the velocities translate directly into vibrations in the room. And there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, but it's also like you're dealing, and I'm going to include synthesizers on this because, and I'm talking about analog synthesizers, they've got MAJIK in them. And there's like, okay, you know, you can go wood is a living thing, wood holds life, wood holds spirit. And then you're dealing with strings, you're dealing with this machine, and Alex just doesn't give a shit right now. I look at Alex going, can we change this fucking conversation? But be open to it. Like, you know, if you're not into it, play with it. Sit down at a piano, which is what I do every time. Every time I I go to the fucking opera or the fucking Ebel, I'll sit in front of this thing and I'll put my hands on her and I'll say, baby, talk to me. Just talk. And I will smell her and I will run my fingers. This is now sounding like Perfume. Great movie. Fucking what a movie. And smell this thing and just let your fingers fall. Hold down the sustain. It's like the accelerator. And just let your fingers fall. And then let them fall again. And oh my God, she sings to you. It's the most wonderful, wonderful thing. And you can do the same thing with like a very old, like a pure analog as well, or a guitar or whatever. But there's MAJIK in them, and I choose to see the MAJIK, and I just call it out. Like half the Ice Planet 9000 stuff, like that's fucking channeled. It's a piano gave me a song. And I know the piano gave me a song because that is not what I normally do. It did something different that I don't do. And it is a reflection of I'm inspired by the space I am in. And the piano it just sings. And then there's the wonderful, so there's actually a piano at the Ebel, and there's a sign at saying, do not put, it's this beautiful old grand, do not put anything on this piano. It's like 80 years old. Fuck, it's a good sounding piano. And people always put stuff on it. And so we've now said, don't put anything on the piano because it's cursed. There's a ghost in it. It's haunted. And if you put anything on it, you're going to jinx your show. And then they'll go, oh, fuck, sorry, like that. Theatre people are like that. And then I found out the fucking thing is, one of the old people who works in there goes, oh yeah, there's something about that piano. Like, you got to give it good energy or it'll fuck with your show. I went, oh, crazy. Brett, talk to me.
I would say that, any analog instrument is kind of like that. Whether drums, guitar, all of them. Pianos, violins. I mean, at the end of the day, they have a capability that synthesizers don't always have. Some of them have it, but don't always have, and that is that they can go out of time too. And they can be in that area where, you know, it's not a note that's going to play an A on a guitar may not be the same A as is on your synthesizer. You're going to have to tune them to each other if you want that same frequency. So with that comes all those nuances, and that's really all I had for that. You know, is, you know, some people see it as magic, and I will tell you that I wanted the sound of you know, a death metal guitar. I mean, I can't tell you how many instruments that on the synthesizer I distorted to never get there. Grab the instrument, learn the instrument. Now I know how that works. You know, there's to all of these things. They have their own character, their own energy,
Their own smell. Thank you, Brett. Yeah, Adam commented on the smell. There is just something about that fucking smell, man. Old wood, old electronics, and when you turn it on for the first time, or any residual electronics, hair or crap that's in there starts burning. Oh, I love that smell. Rezi, talk to me.
Brett, you said any analog, but I think tuned percussion acoustic instruments are like the pinnacle right there. The things that you can get from the dynamic range of true 0 to 120, 130 dB SPL in a room, and the shape of the attack and sustain portions of these things in a room, and the tunedness of it with the timbral shifts that you can get from a piano, a drum, harp, I guess, to some lesser extent, but like the percussion ones, like they're the pinnacle of this, making the air vibrate naturally and by touching it through a hammer. You're smacking these things with a mechanical hammer device, and there's something really special about that to me, and I think it sounds like to you also.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, it's at least theorized that, you know, drums are man's earliest instruments, and that they were probably communications tools. You know, you would take a log and you'd bang against a tree to announce where
It's
you're
not
at.
in a sophisticated way either. We're talking visceral. Like that's kind of the thing I guess I'm getting down to.
And tying back to, you know, the themes and the shoot, I forgot the term. Our earlier conversation about Close Encounters, which is Terminator 1. You know, when I say war drums, everyone has a thought of what that is, and it's usually the same frequencies.
War drums. All about them war drums. I don't even know what we're talking about right now. Does anybody want to
Talking about affordable instruments, right?
Yes. Do we want to keep going on this? Do we want to change subject? We're kind of getting close to that mark. Do we want to rate MTV TV? How's everyone feeling? Alex is just looking so... I'm picking on you today. I'm such a bastard. I'm a bastard. Does anybody else want to bring in anything insane?
I can watch some videos.
Okay. Yeah, let's wanna fling on over to MTV TV. Yeah, okay, let's do that. Thanks for being part of this. And the chats are always an excellent thing for me. Always good fun. Every Saturday we're here. Oh, I'm not going to be here next Saturday. We'll talk about that later. So it might still be going. I don't know, but I will not be here. This is brought to you by, but definitely the week after. Angelspit's Patreon. Oh yeah. $3 a month or free. Take your pick, or more, whatever you want. Everything will eventually be on there. And you always get a free copy of everything as well. Nebula Suite and the new Angelspit's album's coming up, so fucking join it. Thanks for being a part of it, Jen. Ice Planet 9000, go give it a listen. It's very good. New Angelspit will be released probably in a week or so, or the Kickstarter launches. Industrial Incision's playlist there. Go listen to it. And Find the bands that you've never heard of, add them to a playlist, and keep playing them. Man, I'm telling you, you're going to help people out a lot. Wednesday nights, Vulture Culture. If you want to learn about synths and get very inspired with a whole bunch of people getting drunk, do it. Right here, Scum Cheers. Bring it on. We're now going to fang on over to MTV TV. Diane, if you could get ready on that raid, that'd be great. Hold on, did that? Yes, it did. So if you're watching somewhere else, it's there. Razi, thank you so much for being part of this.
I'm always excited to be here. Thanks for having our show for us, man. That's great.
Bloody legend. And remember, MTV TV also have our Patreon, so does Razi. So look at all this content. Get inspired. Let's get some fun stuff going on. And remember, if you want to send your video to MTV TV, just send them an email and it will be amazing. Boom, go. Let's get that stream going. And while that stream's happening, we're just going to sit here and talk benign shit. What are we going to talk about? Gear or something? Yeah, we talking about gear. I can't remember. I don't remember.
Free water.
Okay, we just raided. Yeah, we just raided. All right, MTV TV's looking killer. See you next week. Oh, we're gonna stand back here.